Well, working in the docks, we were, I'm not going to say, not the word safeguarded, but we were reserved. So you had to get permission from the employers to join up. And that's what we had to do. Just go and say, look, I want to join the forces. Okay. And they'd take me off their books. And that was it. Yeah, it was a pub called the Yorkshire Grey. It was out near Elton Way somewhere, and that was a recruiting centre. So that's where I went. The trams are running those days. I've got a tram all the way to Surrey Docks. And then that's where I enrolled. Well, just count your age, whether you had a criminal record, any complaints, you know, any defects. I don't know whether they had a medical examiner. I think they did actually have a medical examiner there to make sure you were fit. Then I went home. Well, I was on the volunteer reserve, so I had to wait until they called for me. And I got a letter one day saying you had to report to Blackpool on a certain date. Blackpool, yeah. Quite happy actually. I was resigned to the fact that I was going to go in the forces and that I wouldn't have a personality of my own, which they take away. Just a number then. They didn't really know till I turned up at Basingstoke in my uniform. I must have wrote my letter though, I must have told them. Train from Paddington, I think. I was thinking of some other trip actually when I went to Avonmouth. So I went to Avonmouth to work before I joined the Air Force. For 6 weeks there. There's someone at Blackpool that meets you and takes you to the office where you've got your details recorded and they give you your first number. So I always remember the sergeant that was taking our names. He said, "This is your forces number," he said, "you'll remember that all your life," which is true. 1330922. That was one, yeah, uniform. There was an old, well, not that old, but there was a market there with all the little enclosures, you know, stalls, whatever you like to call them, which was in use for the RAF. They had all the different types of uniforms on all these different shops. Then you start at one and you pick up things, nothing fitted, all like sacks on you. Go in. Eventually I got to the end, I got this big armful of clothing and this corporal brushed by me and knocked the lot out of my hands. And I was ready to have a go at him and suddenly I realised it was one of my workmate dogs. So he said, "What you got there?" I said, "Oh, so and so." "Oh," he said, "shut them back there." He said, he was in charge of the clothing department. That was quite interesting. He was there in digs with his wife. Yeah. Yeah. Where the others just had to have what was slung at them, he was letting me try them on. I think I've had the trousers altered. Then you had 2 pair each, so it didn't matter. Directed to the digs I was going to live in for 6 weeks. I remember the street, South Street, Blackpool. But I couldn't go there now unless I asked for someone. It was a boarding house. The landladies there, they were making a bomb where they used to have all the people during the summer. They had all these Air Force personnel all being paid for. Yeah, the RAFs were there as well. God, when I looked in, the first time I went in the Tower Ballroom there, it was absolutely packed with uniforms, airmen and WAFs, all dancing around there. Drill on the beach, on the sand. All part of the training, marching up and down, obeying orders. all through the day. You had the evenings off. You had a curfew, not a curfew, I don't know the word. Anyway, we had to be back in our digs by 10 o'clock or 10:30, something like that. It was the corporal sometimes used to come round and ask the landlady, everybody in, and she used to tell a few lies and say, oh yes, they are, when we weren't. You know. That's where I went to, in one pub with a Scots bloke I palled up with. We were in there, having a beer and whatnot, and anyway, when it was time to go, we walked out, and I said, hold on, Jock, I said, I can't see, it's too dark. Oh, no, don't worry, he said, hold my arm, he said, I can see all right, and he led me straight into the boarding house. I went out, they'd cut me head open. The landlady was horrified, shrieked. Well, I had to join something, and I knew that if I waited for the authorities to call me up, which they did, for lots of people, I thought, well, I'll go where I want to go and not where they send me, so that's why I went and volunteered for the Air Force. Well, it was one of the other workmates. He turned up one day and he was saying to me, he said, oh, I've just joined up. I said, Harry, really? He said, yeah, I've joined the Air Force. I said, I didn't think you could join now. I thought it was a, you know, top grade force. No, he said, they're taking everybody now. That's when I went and asked the governor. I said, I want to join up. He said, that's okay.